Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds.
So when people start to see themselves as being equal, not just the middle classes or the lower poverty-stricken classes, but people in general, the middle classes, the uppity classes, then the human race can say, yeah, we are one people. But by and large, what happens in countries, what happens in societies is that those people that have the money, those people that own and control the means of production, that own and control the corporations and the businesses and the manufacturing centers, they tend to live in and amongst themselves and distance themselves from the rest of us. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So do I believe in a revolution? Is a revolution necessary? Yeah, a revolution's necessary. A revolution's necessary. If you turn off your mobile phone, if you turn off the YouTube, if you turn off your Facebook, do you think Mark Zuckerberg is going to be worth any more than you within a couple of months or if everybody turned off their stuff and their fuck, do you think these mad bammers and crackerjacks are going to be worth any more than you or me? No, they won't. They'll be worth just the same as you or me. So what is your energy worth? What is my energy worth?
Do you not believe that the world will self-destruct before there is a time that we all come together as one? For one, because I don't believe that the world is going to last forever. And I think that before we come together as one, this won't be here anymore. We won't be here anymore. So that's why, and that's not really a question, that's kind of a statement.
That's your view.
It's your
do I share your view? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, not necessarily to share my view, but do you believe that it is possible? Do you believe we have enough time to come together as one? Is the question.
Look, I spoke to a brother a few years ago, and I asked a very similar question. And he said, it's going to take 1,000 years before we come together as humans, or Africans come together as Africans, before human family realizes and recognizes that they all come from Africa and that we're all Africans anyway. It's going to take 1,000 years. But I've always had the thought, I've always had the hope, I've always had the inclination that the potential of technology to equalize humanity, the potential of technology to inform and educate humanity, the human race, is immense. It's massive. So I put my faith and trust to some degree in the creative use of technology, in the creative use of communications, of word, of sound, of power, of song and dance, which is how, to some respect, in some aspect, which is how humanity has basically governed itself since history. It's passed information from one generation to another generation through forms of entertainment, through forms of information, through song, through dance, through poems, through stories, through literature. So I believe that the communication aspect of the world, which we're seeing a massive influx of, which we're seeing a massive explosion of nowadays. Everybody nowadays can be their own publisher. Everybody can be their own record producer. Everybody can do everything nowadays. So we're kind of equal on one level. Do I believe that we will see each other as humans and equals and save the planet Earth before it's too late? I believe that as long as you've got the means of communications and technology and emancipation in your hands, and you choose to take 555 million selfies rather than helping out, rather than contributing to social and community endeavors, then no, we're not going to make it happen. But when you start to wake up and say, hey, this tool that I have here, it's not just for self-aggrandizement, it's not just for self-glorification, it's not just for selfies, it's not just for me and my ass and my breasts and the rest and the best, it's not just for that. It's there for us to communicate with each other our innermost thoughts, our innermost feelings, and the best practice, the best way to eat, the best way to train, the best way to exercise, the best yoga methods, the best swimming methods, the best nutrition, the best food, the best veganism, the best carnivorism, the best omnivorism, the best vegetarianism, the best of everything. That's what these tools are there for us to show each other how we do it in Africa, how we do it in Asia, how we do it in Southern America, how we do it in Australia. For the Aboriginals, well, the Aboriginals now, the Australians now, the Indians now, the Pakistanis now, the Africans now, the Southern Americans now. We're following the wrong model. We're following the model of the selfie. We're following the model of materialism and self-aggrandizement. We're not following the model of best behavior or best modeled constructive program to go forward. You follow me? So my own personal opinion, do I think that we're going to have time? I believe that there is a potential for us to make amends before it's too late. And I'm infinitely, eternally optimistic that we will do. Yeah, I think that there is enough time. But then in terms of dealing with the issue of apocalyptic issues and apocalyptic vision, I remember back in 1984, people said the world was going to end in 1984 because some Bama crackerjack way back who was a 33-degree Masonic Lodge member called George Orwell wrote a book called 1984. And they said in 1984 the world's going to end. Then they said, no, it's not going to end in 1984. No apocalypse in 1984. Then they said it's going to be 1990. No, there's no apocalypse in 1990. Then they said in 1999. You might not be remembered too well because you was kind of young. Huh?
The millennium.
Yeah, the millennium bug, the da-da-ra, the ra-da-ra, the blah, blah, blah. There's got to be too much boom, boom, blah, 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 blah. Yeah? That's all it is, fluff, blood. All that talk of apocalyptic. Bob Marley wrote a song. I can't remember the name of the song, but I remember one of the lines in the song that said, have no fear for atomic energy because none of them can stop the time. And if you think about it, time is just a system of measurement. And what does it actually measure? The passage of the sun and the moon, of which is a reflection and part of you. You are part of the universe like the tree, the sun, the moon, the star, the grass, the earth, the air. We all are. Bob Marley said, have no fear for atomic energy. So have no fear for the ending of time. But then saying that, and then also 2012, approaching 2012, people said the end of the year, the end of the world is coming in 2012. They even made a film called 2012 because of the Mayan prophecy, the Mayan Aztec Inca prophecy from way back when. But none of them can stop the time. None of us can stop the time. The time is something we don't even know what it is. Try and define time. It's nigh impossible. It's like trying to define life or self. Essentially, there is none. Some people then talk about the simulation hypothesis or simulation theory. We're not really here. But that's a completely different story for a different day, for a different topic. But in terms of apocalypse, every year, blood, they tell you the apocalypse is coming. Every year they tell you the oil's going to run out, that the planet is overheating. I remember when I was a child, they talked about, when I was a youth, they talked about global cooling down, a global cooling, a great big freeze and a great big freeze over, another ice age. And then as I'm a man, they're talking about global warming. Now they've gone from a freeze to a warming, and now they've gone to, it's just climate change. So they're talking about weather being an apocalyptic phenomenon. And for some people, I remember back in the day, I think it was 2007, correct me if I'm wrong, or 2005, there was a massive tsunami on the Indonesian peninsula and the Indonesian islands. Something like 400,000 people died. That was apocalypse. For those 500,000 people, for that 250,000 people. That was the end of the world. Every day people are murdered. Every day people are killed. And then as people die and leave the earth, it makes way for other souls to come into the earth. Are you with me? The fact that there's more and more people here. 100 years ago there was only 1 billion people in the face of the earth. Now there's 7 coming to 8 billion people in the face of the earth. The fact that there are more people here means there's more energy here, means there's more potential here to do good. And yet, how the world, how the systems, how the media, how the communications, how the educational systems, how the system of white supremacy has got us is worshipping material consumption. It's not best behavior. It's not best behavior. It's not the model of best that best suits our situational condition. So if we carry on with the self-aggrandizement, with the self-glorification, my ass and my tits and my bits, then yeah, we are going to be heading for self-destruction. But if we start to take on board aspects of good behavior from each other, mother from brother, brother from father, father from son, etc., cousin from cousin, family from family, nation from nation, tribe from tribe, because most of the tribes on the earth have been wiped out. Not true? They killed off most of the indigenous people, getting back to the Aborigines, getting back to the Afghans, getting back to the Pakistanis and the Indians, Baka Bush and those so-called Native Americans and Indians. Most of the natives have been annihilated, have been integrated, have been assimilated, have been bumbaras, wiped out, wiped out, wiped out. So what have we got now to refer to when we're looking for an ideal type of image? dumb Africans running around the jungle with grass skirts, living in mud huts. Europeans laugh at that, as if that's a bad thing. But when you're running around the jungle in a grass skirt, it's keeping you cool. You're living in an ecologically sound situation. As long as you got love for your family, as long as you got food, clothing and shelter. So what if you don't have a PS3 or an iPhone 8 or a Sony X or a bumper ass Versace Gasucci bag or crocodile alligator? You understand what I say, young man? Oh. So, the next question. I hope that answers your question. Apocalypse, doomsday is here, is now, is every day for some people. For some races, for some villages. Villages get wiped over, get wiped out with mudslides and floods and tsunamis and fires and hurricanes and winds and all sorts of things every day. Similarly, when foreign governments come into Africa and Asia and pile the people full of guns and weapons of mass destruction and let the people go and kill each other, that also is apocalypse. You with me, blood? Okay.
Okay, the last two questions are not really questions. I want you to give an in-depth review of how you felt about the Black Panther movie, why you feel the way that you feel about the Black Panther movie, and just go into more depth about it, please.
Blood, that we need a whole new presentation for the Black Panther movie. But first of all, I will tell you straight up and down, when I was a young man, I was one of these people that they call a pirate. Yeah? They did not allow us any form of radio play or airplay on the radio, on TV. They banned all black music from Top of the Pops, from the charts. They banned all jigger music, apart from the acceptable jigger music. They banned all forms of hip-hop, electro, rap, garage when it first was coming out in the 80s, early 90s. They banned it all, banished it all. They would not play us on Radio 1, first of all. So I'm still a pirate today, in certain respects. And what I mean by that, I'll justify in a second. But in relation to that, because they banished us and we wanted an outlet for our creative expression, we went and created our own studio. We made our own radio stations. And then because they saw that they couldn't stop us, they then tried to take us on board and become part of them. We have an alternative, or we had rather, an alternative expression of an alternative reality. Nowadays, they've taken us and put us as part of the mainstream. The daydream, the poison stream, the sellout crossover point where there's no return. They put us on the path of self-destruction. They put us on the path of material acquisition. Now, rather than expressing your political and your world views for the benefit of world people, now you do it for a paycheck. Now you do it for $1, for £1, for a penny, for a cent. And to me, that don't make no sense. I remember when I was coming up past the radio part, Spike Lee had films. Spike Lee produced the alternative view of how black people would prefer to see themselves. Have black people in films, showing just normal everyday Joes, normal everyday Leroys, normal everyday Butcher Bantams, doing what they do, living how they live in America in the streets. Living in America. I remember our next film called New Jack City, where black people actually starred and wrote and acted in these films. These were all quite significant. I could go through a whole filmography, a whole bibliography of films, a whole list of films which have been made. Blood, this is the important part. This is the important part. 100 years ago. 1917, 1915. I can give you a book this thick of films that were made by black and alternative independent sources 100 years ago. But where we were 100 years ago as African people, as Black Panthers, as humans, in some respects, is a lot further than where we are today. I don't know whether you've heard of Tulsa, the Black Beverly Hills, the Black Wall Street. These are places in America where they had their own police force, they had their own fire service, they had their own schools, they had their own doctor surgery, they had their own dentists, they had their own factories, they had their own railway, their own rail cart system, their streetcar system in America. They had everything. Then what happened? There was a president in America called Woodrow Wilson. And he was the captain of America at the time when a dangerous, nasty Bama crackerjack called D.W. Griffith released a film called The Birth of a Nation, 1915. The original name for the film was Birth of a Nation. The original name for the film was The Klansman. And then they changed it to The Birth of a Nation, aka The Klansman. You can still see posters if you go into Google and type it in. It will say The Birth of a Nation, and then beneath in brackets, The Klansman. This film was a direct advertisement for white racist maniacs to go and join hooded criminals and help to destroy the black communities in America. It was an active advertisement for active jealousy and racism and hatred spreading in America. Because what happened as a direct result of that film was over 3 million whites joined the KKK. Whereas prior to that, there wasn't the KKK. Blacks and whites lived side by side. You had black cities, white cities, you had mixed cities, you had everything. And everything was coming along strong. But some whites saw this as a threat to themselves, as a threat to their status quo, and didn't want this to happen. So then they designed the film Birth of a Nation, and they promoted and they prompted the destruction of black independence over 100 years ago. The first time a bomb was dropped on American soil was by the American government. Tulsa, 1921, 1922, I believe. May 15th, or forgive me the date, but type in Black Tulsa. That's the first time a bomb was ever dropped on American soil. And it was by the American government, dropping bombs on black people, on black townsfolk, on black women and children, just because they were independent. Just because they had their own movie houses, their own cinemas, their own cinema houses, their own movie production facilities, their own film production facilities. They had their own alternative version of reality and of events. This narrative, this alternative narrative, is something that they never wanted to let out the bag. So then, coming back to 100 years later, there's a whole lot I can talk about in terms of the whole filmography. There were many films made them times, which people need to be aware of and basically go and do some research into to find out, hey, 100 years ago, blacks were kind of like thriving in certain communities as their own producers, their own doctors, their own... We're not just jiggers, shoe shine boys. They made us into shoe shine boys by making sure we had nothing for ourselves. And they programmed us to be that, to be dumb, watermelon eating jiggers, rather than entrepreneurs. Don't forget Benjamin Banneker. Don't forget George Washington Carver. Don't forget a whole lot of Africans. Booker T. Washington, Frederick Douglass, a whole lot of Africans in America, or blacks or browns in America, were industrious, entrepreneurial, intelligent, advanced, geniuses, just like anybody else. A good question for you to be asking me is, do I believe that there is an intelligent quotient advocate in alignment with race? Do I believe there's any difference between intelligence and intelligent humans and their racial characteristics? No, I don't. I believe that we're all equally as intelligent or as dumb and stupid as each other. I believe that, first of all. And yet there are those on the white wing, there are those in the white supremacist wing who believe that whites are ultimately more intelligent. There are those on black supremacist wings who believe that ultimately blacks are more intelligent. There are those in the Chinese quarter or the Oriental quarter who believe that the Chinese are more intelligent. There are those in the Arabian Peninsula who believe that the Arabians and the Asians are more intelligent. This tribalism, this distinction between each other and your intelligent quotient system is more of a reflection of your own negative impression and outlook rather than any expression of others' intelligence and their abilities. So to the film Black Panther, first of all, I would say it's not a Spike Lee film. Mm-hmm. It's not a Black Tulsa. It's not a Tulsa film. It's not an independent production. It's part of the mainstream daydream media. When I say daydream, I mean Hollywood is about hallucination. It's about hoodwinking. It's about confusing. It's about putting you in some form of a trance. It's about getting you... it's about building an illusion. About building an alternative version of reality. It's about suspending your disbelief. It's about going into a cinema or absorbing some media product and sitting down, being passive and actively disengaging yourself and soaking up the message, soaking up the format, soaking up the meaning, soaking up the subliminal, soaking everything up and not being actively engaged in the process. You're being a sponge, soaking up all the information. So the information that was in that film, You have to see who paid for the film. Who were the financiers behind the film? Who wrote the film? If you're going to tell me there's a film coming out tomorrow called Black Panther, I'm looking for Huey P. Newton. I'm looking for H. Rap Brown. I'm looking for Stokely Carmichael. I'm looking for Kwame.
You're telling me that the king of a third world country runs around in a bulletproof catsuit? Why don't you ask him yourself? Because he's right outside. Bingo.
Kwame Ture. I'm looking for Bob Brown. I'm looking for the black rap fraternity. I'm looking for some message in there to give people hope. I'm looking for the 10-point program. Freedom, justice, equality, education, dignity.
The Black Panther lives.
Watch me do my.
I hope you're ready, bro. Cause I'm just getting started. Let's have some fun.
Show off.
I'm looking for that. I'm not looking for some fluff to keep me in a preserved state of illusion, to keep me in a preserved state of hallucination, to keep me hoodwinked, to keep me in a these guys when you go to these clubs in the nighttime and they brainwash these people. You understand what I say? They say, okay, I'm going to hypnotize you. Yeah? Mm-hmm. I don't expect Black Panther to be a film based on hypnotism.
I want your weapons. Your secrets. It's all mine now. Is this your king? This ends today.
To get you into a state of suspended disbelief. Or in a state of suspended animation. And then you sit down and soak up the message and go out and then... Because by sitting down and watching the film, they're hypnotizing you. They're making you part of their illusion. First of all, you take your hard-earned money and give it to them. That's our big problem as people. We don't take our hard-earned money and give it to our family and give it to our community. We give it to the other man. We give it to everybody else first before we give it to the self. That's a sure sign of self-hatred, of self-despise, self-disrespect. So you give your money to the other man because they made a film for the brother man, and now you feel good. Because you saw a Marvel character or a Bomber-Ross Capcom character or an Avenger character come alive on the screen, and yeah, that's who you want to be now. Like a Wonder Woman is the focal iconic figure for all feminists. Wonder Woman is there for the feminists. Yes, I'm a Wonder Woman, not a Batman. I'm a black man, not a white man. Come on, wake up, shake up, smell the coffee. They're taking a pee out of you. They're taking the pee out of you and me. They're taking the pee out of the whole Black Panther movement. Where was the Black Panther in that film? Where was there a Black Panther in the film? They showing some Africans in the film or some African monkey man? Is that the Mashoya? Monkey man? Is that the African? But then they flip the script and drop some science on you, saying, oh, the Africans had this special material mineral that the whole world needs to have some of. Look, Africa is the breadbasket, is the garden basket, is the marketplace, is the garden, is the food basket, is the treasury for the whole earth. Everybody from everywhere in the world goes to Africa to extract from Africa its riches and its natural mineral earth resources. That's what the film's about. And then you have some ideological battles within the film. You have a black radical who was a black devil working as a mercenary for the CIA. And he turns out to be the anti-hero. So the film's quite complex on very many levels. But subliminally, what it's programming you to do is to become nothing but a consumer. And then at the end of the film, you'll feel good. You'll take a selfie in front of the Black Panther poster and feel that you've done your part for the upliftment of humanity. I kid you not. You have not done your part for humanity by watching the film, by taking part in the film, taking in your African food, taking in your tikka masala, taking in your popcorn, doing whatever. You've not. You just become another numpty, consumption, idiot, sit on and watch money and feed Hollywood and feed the daydream, mad mainstream machine. Don't watch it. Boycott it. So getting back to the point of being a pirate, I saw some brother streamline the film, so the man's then watched it for free. First of all, I'm letting you know that I'm not going to pay to go and watch that film. I'm not going to contribute toward the upliftment and the advancement of the mad illusion and the mad hallucinogenics that they're feeding through film, media, television and computer. You understand me, blood? I'm not going to pay for that directly. So we watched it pirate style, first of all. Did I think it was a good film? No. Did I think it was engaging? On some levels. It had a little bit of action in there. It had some beautiful black sisters in there. It had some beautiful black guys in there. It had some beautiful scenery in there. But intellectually, it didn't appeal to me. It didn't strike me on any accord at all whatsoever. I found it severely lacking, severely wanting of something. And what it was wanting of, and what it was wanting for, was that which the true Black Panthers, the real Black Panthers, lived their life toward and for, and died for and toward. They died for the upliftment and the betterment of Africans. They were in their bed sleeping a few hours when the American government, when the FBI, when the dirty Ross, gay J. Edgar Hoover came in with his lackeys and blackies and murdered and did mercenary activities on the Black Panthers.
The Black Panthers are recruiting criminals and hoodlums and encouraging them to engage in a broad range of terrorist activities. They are the greatest threat to the internal security of this country. We want to make it clear to black youth that if they want to be revolutionaries, they will be dead revolutionaries.
When the American government, when the FBI, when the dirty Ross, gay J. Edgar Hoover came in with his lackeys and blackies and murdered and did mercenary activities on the Black Panthers, sleeping in their beds. So it was lacking severely. It didn't have the spark. There was no revolution within that film. At all. There was no inkling of a revolution within that film. Ideologically, cinematographically, in any way, form, shape or manner, in my humble opinion, there was none. But if you think it was a great film, honky dory, great, enjoy it. Be a consumption. Be a consumer, enjoy it as a consumer, enjoy it as part of the mainstream. But that film to me is not part of the solution. If Spike Lee or some independent African company or African American company produced and made a film of equal quality, how many millions did they spend on that film? Don't you think the money would have been better off helping to build water irrigation system, helping to build water sanitation systems, helping to give sight to the blind children in Africa, helping to give food to the starving children in Africa and India? Don't you think the hundreds of millions that people spend to go and watch the Bumbo Ass film would have been better off donated to some worthy cause? Or if you don't want to donate because you don't trust a charity, then get off your fat ass and go and do something for people around the world. Don't you think it's better that people do that rather than sit down and enjoy themselves with self-aggrandizement? So you would have been better off, we would have been better off, the world would have been a better place had that film have not have been made and people were able to come together and do something useful for their own family, community, race, nation, and humanity. Are you with me? Do you want a further analysis of the film, or is that okay? Because I'm wiping it off with a flick of the wrist.
You know, worlds are changed in people's minds, in their perception. And this is the time for them to do that, the proper time, you know.
Forced things must perish. How are you going to be a revolutionary? It's such a tradition. Submit yourselves to your masters with all respect.
Because I know more of it.
Television is a drug.
but populism doesn't sound.
Only dance like
Song gazing.